cannot wait to see this human. Let's get him right on out here and not hold back. Keanu Reeves, where are you?
I have a question for you.
Really? Yes.
I have a very important question for you.
Yes.
Is this the chair that Keanu Reeves sat in?
It is.
When he said, if you're not going to fight for your love, what kind of love do you have? Is this the chair?
It's the very chair.
Oh, my God.
Because if you don't fight for your love, what kind of love do you have? No, I'm kidding.
Girl, I need you to stop what you're doing right now, because 15 women, Oscar winners, pop icons, A-list actresses, they all said the same thing about one man.
Did Sandra Bullock have a crush on Keanu?
Yes, big time.
Whoa.
Did y'all get together? Did you date him?
Never dated him.
Really?
There was just something about me that I guess he didn't like.
And the stories they told, some are hilarious, some are genuinely sweet.
You'd be bored, right? It's back when I used to make out with your cardboard cutout.
One actually made me tear up a little.
I have so much love and respect for him, and
one involves a wardrobe disaster on the biggest red carpet in the world that nobody talks about. This is the tea on Keanu Reeves, and it hits different every single time. Number 15, Kelly Ripa. Okay, we're starting here because I need you to understand the level of devotion we are dealing with. Kelly Ripa, daytime television royalty, woman who has interviewed everyone, went on her own show and told Keanu Reeves to his face that she used to make out with a cardboard cutout of him.
You'd be bored, right? It's back when I used to make out with your cardboard cutout.
Not in some embarrassed back in the day way, straight up present tense energy, zero shame. Here's the context. When Kelly was on the soap opera, All My Children, a friend who worked at Blockbuster got her a life-size cardboard Keanu. She kept it in her dressing room. And then she sat across from the actual man and told him she would kiss it and, well, you get the idea. Keanu's reaction was equal parts flattered and completely unsure what to do with that information. The clip went viral immediately because honestly, Kelly Ripa just said what everyone was thinking. She said it directly to his face. He took the compliment with this quiet little smile and moved on. Number 14, Rosie O'Donnell. This one is different from every other story on this list, and that's exactly why it belongs here. In October 2025, Rosie O'Donnell appeared on the Australian show Sam Pang Tonight and was asked to name her best and worst talk show guests ever.
One of the worst.
Yeah, worst.
Who I love the guy, but he's not good on talk shows. Keanu Reeves.
Her best was Barbra Streisand. Her worst, Keanu Reeves. And she said it with such obvious affection that the whole thing became its own kind of love story. She described his 1997 appearance on The Rosie O'Donnell Show when he came in to promote The Devil's Advocate. The show was live, no retakes, and Keanu simply would not talk. She asked him how he was feeling. He said good. That was it.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good.
She asked him about working with Al Pacino. Silence, then one word. She told him, on air, in front of the audience, Keanu, it is a talk show. You have to talk. She finally pulled out a Bill and Ted action figure just to get a reaction out of him. And when he admitted on air that he was not comfortable with talk shows, everything clicked. He wasn't being difficult. He was just being completely, painfully, hopelessly himself. Rosie closed the story by saying, he's a lovely man and a good-hearted guy. I don't want to throw him under the bus. He came back in 2001 and by her own words, got the hang of it. But the first time, she earned that one. Number 13, Gwyneth Paltrow. Before Gwyneth Paltrow was an Oscar winner or a wellness empire, she was just a young fan with a major crush on Keanu Reeves, like completely gone over him. She talked about it on the Good Hang podcast with Amy Poehler, and the way she told it was so refreshingly human for someone who normally seems like she was born fully formed at a Cannes premiere. She said Keanu was her very first real crush, her first, and she was so far gone over him that when it finally came time to move on to someone else, she went all the way to Judd Nelson's chaotic bad boy energy in St. Elmo's Fire as her next obsession, which honestly tells you everything about where her head was at. The detail that gets me is that she said this casually, laughing at herself, like it was ancient history that still makes total sense, because it does.
I laughed, I cried a number of times, I sweat, I danced, I got...
Even Gwyneth Paltrow, who has since dated and married some of the most famous and attractive men alive, still talks about Keanu Reeves as her first real one. He ruined everyone else slightly. That seems to be a pattern. Number 12, Paula Abdul. This story permanently changed how I think about Keanu Reeves' whole mysterious image, and I need you to sit with it for a second. In 1991, Paula Abdul was at the absolute peak of her career. She personally requested Keanu for her Rush Rush music video. Very cinematic, very romantic. A whole rebel without a cause aesthetic. dramatic. He was the brooding leading man. That was the assignment. But before they had even officially met, Paula walked past his trailer. The door was slightly open. She looked in, and instead of finding a serious, intense method actor getting into character, she found Keanu in his underwear, aggressively and passionately playing air guitar, completely absorbed, not performing cool, just living his actual best life between takes. Paula's exact words were, "I said, that's my boyfriend."
Where my boyfriend Buzz goes over the cliff.
The whole thing is so far from the stoic, mysterious legend the internet has built around him that it almost doesn't compute. And then she revealed that their big on-screen kissing scene was filmed at 4 a.m. As the sun was coming up, both of them exhausted and sleep-deprived, and giggling and completely improvising. The mystery, the brooding, the intensity, all of it disappears the moment you hear that. This man was doing air guitar in his underwear 20 minutes before one of the most romantic music video shoots of the decade. Number 11, Diane Keaton. In 2003, Keanu Reeves played a doctor who falls genuinely and completely in love with Diane Keaton's character, a woman in her 50s. In the romantic comedy, Something's Gotta Give, and he played it with total sincerity. No irony, no winking at the camera, just real, warm, completely respectful love. Diane Keaton never forgot it. 17 years later, at the 2020 Oscars, they were asked to present an award together. They walked on stage, completely ignored the teleprompter, and spent the entire segment telling each other how wonderful the other was. Live television, in front of everyone. The internet lost its mind because the chemistry was so warm and so real that people genuinely weren't sure what they were watching. Keanu later told Stephen Colbert that working with Diane Keaton changed his life. He described watching her spin in a little circle before every take to throw herself off balance, just to keep the performance alive and real. He said she was fearless. He said knowing her changed him. And that moment at the Oscars, the way they looked at each other, the way he spoke about her, you could feel that it was true. He didn't need to say it for the cameras. He'd already been saying it for 17 years. Number 10, Charlize Theron. Charlize Theron has worked alongside some of the most difficult, most ego-driven men in this entire industry across a very long and very decorated career.
Especially in my career, because I tend to have people in tears. Definitely, after almost 20 years of doing this, a new experience for me.
She has seen everything, and yet when someone asked her about Keanu Reeves after filming The Devil's Advocate with him in 1997, she said, "He is the most polite person I have ever met in my entire life. Not the most professional, not the nicest actor, the most polite person, period." What specifically caught her attention was that Keanu treated the absolute lowest level crew members, the catering staff, the runners, the grips who carry things around all day, with the exact same courtesy and patience as the directors and producers. Please and thank you every time to everyone on set. On 1990s Hollywood film sets, where ego and hierarchy were basically the whole culture. That was extraordinary. They worked together again in Sweet November in 2001, and she said the exact same thing the second time around. When Charlize Theron, with everything she has witnessed in this industry, says you are the most polite person she has ever encountered in her life, that is not a PR line. Go look up their archived press junket footage from 1997. Watch how easily she leans into him. Watch how she laughs. You can see it in her body language before she even says a word. Number 9, Lorie Petty. Point Break is iconic. The chemistry between Keanu and Lorie Petty on screen looks effortless and sun-soaked and completely natural. The reality of filming it was the opposite of all of that. Lorie revealed that their famous romantic night swimming scene required them to be in the actual ocean for 14 straight hours. Not a long day on set, 14 hours in freezing water until the sun literally came up. They were cold and exhausted and running on nothing. And Keanu never once complained to the crew, just stayed present and focused on getting the scene right. But here's the detail that broke the internet when it finally came out. During their famous screen kiss, Lorie playfully grabbed his belt loop without any warning at all. No choreography, no heads up. And the genuine surprise that flickered across his face in that moment, real, unscripted, completely caught off guard. That is what ended up in the final cut of the film. That electricity you feel watching it is real. Also, and I love this detail, none of them had ever surfed before filming. Not Lorie Petty, not Keanu, not Patrick Swayze. They all learned from scratch for the most famous surfing movie of a generation. The audacity is honestly inspiring. Number 8, Amanda de Cadenet. This is the story most people haven't heard, and it shows something about Keanu's his character that the other stories don't. In 1991, Amanda de Cadenet, a young British TV host at the time, had Keanu on her show to promote Point Break. She was completely taken by him the moment he walked in. The enormous problem was that she was 2 months pregnant and married to John Taylor from Duran Duran. She wrote about it in her memoir, It's Messy, with full honesty. Within minutes of meeting him, she made subtle advances toward Keanu, and he gently, quietly turned her down. Not in a way that humiliated her, not dramatically. He just saw a chaotic situation involving someone vulnerable, and he stepped back from it. Amanda understood later that he did this because he is, in her own words, a man of hardcore ethics. They stayed in each other's lives. Years later, after her divorce, they dated briefly, and today they are near lifelong best friends. She has said he is one of the 2 people who fully restored her faith in men after years of tabloid exploitation and industry manipulation. A 27-year-old at the peak of his fame, a beautiful, well-known woman making herself available. And he said no because it was the right thing to do. That's the story. Number 7. Kate Beckinsale. The year is 1993. Kate Beckinsale is making her debut at the Cannes Film Festival. She has no styling team. She bought a cheap bodysuit from an airport shop to wear under her dress. And she gets into the limousine with Denzel Washington, his wife Pauletta, Robert Sean Leonard, and Keanu Reeves. Then the entire bottom of the bodysuit pops open at once, every snap. The fabric, in her exact words, flipped up like a roller blind. She sat in complete paralyzed silence, next to Denzel Washington, too mortified to fix anything in such tight quarters. She stepped out of the car onto one of the most photographed red carpets in the world and whispered the emergency to Keanu and Robert Sean Leonard without a single question. Without even fully processing the structural physics of what was happening, both men immediately formed a human shield around her. Keanu held the front, Robert held the back. They walked the entire Cannes red carpet like that. She posted about it on Instagram years later and called them both legends. When a fan asked in the comments if he was as cool back then as he is now, she replied with one word: heaven always. He spent his Cannes red carpet appearance secretly holding a co-star's broken clothes together. That is the man. Number 6, Winona Ryder. This is the one that will never stop being talked about. In 1992, during the filming of Bram Stoker's Dracula, director Francis Ford Coppola needed Winona Ryder to be visibly terrified for a particular scene. He couldn't get the performance he wanted, so he began verbally abusing her directly, calling her terrible things to try to break her down emotionally. And then he ordered the male cast, Anthony Hopkins, Keanu Reeves, to join in and hurl abuse at her. Anthony Hopkins refused. Keanu refused. He looked at the man who directed The Godfather and said no. Flat, no conversation. But that's only half the story. For the wedding scene in the film, Coppola used a real Romanian Orthodox priest to conduct the ceremony on camera. The whole thing was filmed as an actual ceremony. Keanu has since said, Winona says we are, Coppola says we are, so I guess we're married under the eyes of God. And they have both leaned into it ever since. Winona revealed on the Happy Sad Confused podcast in 2024 that they still text regularly and they always announce themselves by name, even though it shows up on screen. On his birthday, she texts, "Happy birthday, my husband."
On his birthday, I always like, "Happy birthday, my husband."
And he replies every single year, "Hey, my wife, I love you," and signs it with his initials and his current age.
He's like, "Hey, wife, I love you, KR57," like on each birthday.
KR57, KR58, every year. She said, "I would literally do anything with him. He is so special."
Oh my God, I would literally do anything though with him. Like he is so special.
32 years since he refused to hurt her on a film set, and they are still texting each other as husband and wife. Number 5, Carrie-Anne Moss. This is recent, it's verified, and it hit differently when it came out because of how quietly it was said. In June 2025, Carrie-Anne Moss did a long interview with Business Insider looking back on her career. They asked her about the Matrix screen test, the final audition that changed everything for her.
The Matrix, of course, it was so much work, but we had so much support, which I had never had before.
And she described what it was like to meet Keanu Reeves for the very first time on that day. She said, "I met Keanu that day and felt very comfortable with him.
You know, Keanu and I became very close through that process. He was very supportive.
He was very kind. I was very nervous." That was her birthday, her 30th birthday, walking into the most important audition of her entire life, already knowing that if she got the role, her entire salary was locked in before she even tested, the pressure completely crushing. And the first thing she remembered about Keanu Reeves was that he was kind. Not impressive, not intimidating, not the biggest star in the room, kind. After 25 plus years and 4 Matrix films together, that is the detail that stuck. She also mentioned she was on a plane recently and almost put on The Matrix to rewatch it, but stopped herself because she didn't want want anyone around her to think she was watching herself. She ended up watching John Wick instead. She watched her co-star's other movie on a flight because she loves the story that much. That is a whole relationship in 2 sentences. Number 4, Octavia Spencer. Long before Octavia Spencer was an Oscar winner, she was a struggling actress in Los Angeles, barely making it work, driving an old car that spent so much time parked under a particular tree that it was completely plastered in bird droppings. One afternoon, she was on her way to an audition, and the car died in the middle of a busy Beverly Hills intersection. People in expensive cars just drove around her. Nobody stopped.
In this very posh area of Beverly Hills, and there was a cafe, and all of these people were sitting out there, and the cars were honking. Nobody would help me.
Then a man on a motorcycle pulled up with a helmet on. He said, "Do you need some help?" It was Keanu Reeves, right in the height of his post-Matrix fame.
Then all of a sudden, this guy comes up with his sunglasses and motorcycle helmet, and I knew immediately it was Keanu Reeves.
She assumed he would sit in the driver's seat and steer while she pushed. Instead, Keanu told her to get in, put his own hands on the bird poop-covered trunk, and push the entire car out of the intersection himself. There were no cameras, no publicist watching. She was a total stranger to him. He just saw someone who needed help and helped her, with his hands on a filthy car in Beverly Hills. While the wealthy residents of that neighborhood had kept driving, Octavia made a private vow that day. She goes to the movie theater to see every single Keanu Reeves film on its opening weekend. Every one.
But I go to his movie every opening weekend, whatever he has.
She has kept that promise for over 25 years. Number 3, Halle Berry. When Halle Berry joined the cast of John Wick, Chapter 3, she threw herself into training so hard that she fractured 3 ribs during a stunt rehearsal. 3 ribs?
And I realized I had 3 broken ribs.
And the first thing she thought when it happened was that she was about to be fired.
My body had to do things that I'd never done before. It was nonstop, 6 months, 8 hours a day, fight training, firearm training, dog training.
Because in the world of big-budget action productions, an injured actress causing schedule disruptions would normally be replaced without much conversation. She said Keanu and the director made sure she felt supported and that there was a place for her when she was ready to come back. And she did come back and finish the film. Halle has spoken about this multiple times in interviews, and the weight of what she was saying is always there underneath it. She had pushed her body until something broke, trying to live up to the standard he sets. She had actually agreed to take the role before a script was even written, purely to work alongside him. She said the thought of acting opposite Keanu was a little terrifying at first because he's so damn good. And when her body gave out trying to match that, she was not left behind. She came back. She finished it. That is what a real collaborative partner looks like. Number 2, Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore grew up in the most chaotic, overexposed version of Hollywood childhood imaginable. By the time her 16th birthday arrived, she had already been through things that would flatten most adults. She was celebrating at a club in Los Angeles when Keanu walked through the crowd, took her by the hand, led her outside, put her on the back of his motorcycle, and just drove. She told him this story to his face on her talk show in December 2021, and she was emotional recounting it. She said, "You took me on the ride of my life. I was so free. I was such a free human being." She described it as the moment she truly understood what freedom felt like. She said she went back into the party afterward skipping. Keanu listened to the whole story with this quiet, slightly surprised smile, and his only contribution was, "We probably went fast." That was it. No taking credit. No big moment. Just a quiet agreement that, yeah, motorcycles are freedom. And he was glad she felt it. Drew said, "I'm now realizing you can't have a better Sweet 16 than being put on your motorcycle and having the moment where you understand what freedom is." That one actually got me. Number 1, Sandra Bullock. I'm saving this one for last because it has layers, and every single layer lands. First, during the filming of Speed in 1994, there was a stunt sequence where they had to slide out from under a moving bus. Bullock's dress started flying up from the movement. In the middle of the chaos, surrounded by the entire crew, Keanu completely ignored the cameras and used his free hand to hold her dress down against her legs so she wouldn't be exposed. He didn't announce it. He didn't make a show of it. He just did it. She revealed this detail on the 50 miles per hour podcast 30 years later, and it hit differently at that distance. Because here's what was also true during that entire shoot. Both of them were secretly, completely gone over each other, and neither one said a word. Sandra told Ellen in 2018 that she had a massive crush on Keanu during filming.
I think about how sweet Keanu Reeves was and how handsome he
and assumed it was totally unrequited. Then Keanu sat in the same chair on the same show and said, "She obviously didn't know I had a crush on her either."
She obviously didn't know I had a crush on her either.
Two of the biggest stars of their generation, both terrified, both convinced the other one wasn't interested. Instead of a messy set romance, it became something maybe even better, a 30-year friendship built on total trust. And then there is the champagne story. About a year after Speed came out, they were in the same friend group, hanging out one afternoon, and Sandra mentioned casually that she had never tried champagne and truffles. Keanu said really, and the conversation moved on. A few days later, she was at home with a girlfriend, painting nails, and she heard a motorcycle outside. She opened the door. Keanu was standing there with flowers, champagne, and truffles. He said, "I just thought you might want to try them to see what it's like." He sat on her couch. They opened everything. She painted his nails black to match hers, and then he left to go to a date he already had. He had been on his way somewhere and stopped, because 3 days earlier she had mentioned offhand that she had never tried champagne. Sandra told Esquire, "How many people do you know like that?" 30 years of evidence later, the answer is still just the one. 15 women, 30 years of stories, and every single one arrives at the same place. Not a version of it, the exact same truth. This man, when no one is watching, is exactly who you hope he is. He pushed a stranger's dirty car in Beverly Hills while the wealthy neighborhood drove past. He told the director of The Godfather no. He held a co-star's broken clothes together at Cannes. He showed up at a door with flowers and champagne because someone mentioned in passing they'd never tried them. None of it was for cameras, none of it was planned. It just kept happening, quietly, for 30 years, because that is who he actually is. And the fact that 15 completely different women, with no reason to coordinate, all arrived at the same conclusion, that is not coincidence. That is character. If this made you feel something, subscribe. There is so much more where that came from.